the first middle market account that we ever wrote was, I'll tell you the story. So Andrew and I were working on this account. I had just gotten in the business. He was kind of showing me the ropes or whatever. And the guy didn't want to meet in person. He wanted to talk on the phone and us to present on the phone. So instead of, and this is before we had really ever written anything like significant. And so we were literally sitting in the guy's parking lot while we were doing this meeting of his business. And his business was 2 hours away from our office. But we said, hey, if we're going to do a phone meeting, he didn't say we had to do it from our office. We decided we're going to do it from his parking lot. So we talked to him. We get to the end, and he says, you know what? I don't think I want to do this. And then, I was kind of bummed. But then Andrew, he was like, we're not quitting on this. We're not giving up. And I didn't know any better because I just started. And so the guy comes out of his building. I'll never forget this. He had a red Volvo C70 convertible. And so he walks out of his building. He gets in the red Volvo C70 convertible. And he starts backing out of his parking spot after he'd gotten off the phone with us. And he probably had just told the other broker, hey, you got the deal, right? And so Andrew, next thing I know, he jumps out of the truck and he runs across the parking lot. And he walks over to the Volvo. He knocks on the dude's window. And I think the guy was like, am I about to get mugged, right? Like, what's going on? So he knocks on the guy's window and he says, can you give us 10 minutes? And the guy was like, I thought you were on the phone. He said, well, we were on the phone, but we were in your parking lot. And so he was like, well, if you're in my parking lot, I'll give you 10 minutes. And so then Andrew says, hey, just go talk to him for a while. He's like, I'm going to work on some stuff. So anyway, Andrew ends up working on some proposal stuff, like literally in the truck. We walk in and we have a conversation about who we are, who we're trying to be, the kind of agency we're trying to be, the kind of clients we're trying to have, and that while we were not big yet, while we were not experienced yet in accounts like this, that he would be happy, really happy, if he worked with us. And just after that conversation and spending a few minutes with him, he changed his mind. And that was the first account that we ever sold that was over $15,000 in revenue in our whole agency's history. And then from there, it was just like it just kind of clicked. Like, okay, this is what it takes. This is how we do this. This is our approach. We're not going to be these people that come and quote and hope and hope and hope, which is what I talk about a lot, because what 80% of the people do is they give somebody a quote, they hope they're less money, they hope they get the deal, and they hope the other person did it right, because what they said is, we want this to be apples to apples, right? And so for us, this is not a commodity. And so we have spent the past 10 years of our career, I've spent the past 10 years of my career helping people get out of the game of swapping dollars with insurance companies and get into the game of taking control of those costs, because soft costs are huge. People don't think about soft costs. People don't think about total cost of risk. All they think about is the premium that's on the policy. What do I have to pay? And I'm going to pay this insurance company, and then they're going to pay the claim, right? But that's just something that we believe that our value is much greater than just connecting a prospect or a client to an insurance company, right? We're the real value in that chain, and we take that extremely seriously. And the way that I always describe it is, I call it the bank of trust or the trust bank or whatever term you want to use. But I don't believe that there is a single transaction that happens, a single interaction that happens, a single conversation that happens that is neutral. There's nothing that's neutral in business or in life. I mean, whether it's the way that you talk to your wife, the way that you talk to your children, you never know how that word is going to land. And so when we work with people, we try to really understand that we want to build confidence in our agency. We want to build confidence in us, because we're in the people insurance business, and people buy this stuff from other people. That's the way that it works. And so whether it's something as simple as a certificate of insurance, if you've gotten them on time every time, but then you miss it one time, I don't believe that's neutral. I don't believe that's excusable. I believe that it may just be a slight withdrawal from the trust bank, but it is a small withdrawal. And so, that's why when it comes to our people, our team as leaders, is people that are trying to be leaders in our industry, that's the way that we operate. And I know that this opportunity, Insurtech, I think what is so unique about this is it is going to allow us to take that vision that we have of getting you out of the game of swapping dollars with insurance companies, taking control of your cost, and making sure that you can deliver your employees back to their families in the same manner that they went to work. That's so important to us because there's all these different stakeholders in the ecosystem. And so a lot of times I feel like what is focused on is how much does this cost? Well, how much is somebody's life worth, right? How much is somebody's dignity worth? How much is somebody's future worth? Their relationship with their children, right? Somebody loses an arm in a manufacturing plant. Maybe they can't throw the baseball with their son. I mean, you can't put a price tag on that. There's no amount of money that can be assigned to that. I mean, some of my best memories ever with my dad, who passed away 8 years ago, was throwing the baseball in the front yard when I was a kid. And so, like with my son, we went to the beach a couple years ago, and it was his first beach trip. He's 6 years old, or it was the first beach trip he could remember, right? And we were talking as a family one day, and my son, he just looks at me and he says, "Dad." I said, "What, buddy?" He said, "The best week of my entire life is when you took me to the beach." He says, "I'll never forget what it was like to swim in that pool with you." And I'm sitting here thinking, like, he was 4 years old at the time, And 2 years later, or 2.5 years later, as a 6-year-old, he's talking to me about how something that we did together was the coolest thing he's ever done. And for me, a lot of times when you take your family to the beach, and you know how this is, you got kids, it's like parenting somewhere else, especially when they're little. And even though I was stressed out, I was like carrying hundreds of pounds of beach gear down to the beach and setting up the tent, or 5 o'clock in the morning, all that stuff, so my family could be out there. Like, the memory that he made is something that's going to last his entire life. Just like the memories that I made with my dad, will last my entire life. And so, that may be an over dramatization, but the truth is that if you are injured, if you're not in a safe environment, then you may not get to have those experiences with children, right, with your family. I've delivered, from a life insurance perspective, I've delivered death claims before on 30-year-old people. I've had multiple death claims from a workers' comp standpoint. And so I just think that's why we talk so much about the safety, about the culture, about returning your people, doing the employee interviews, and learning as much about how they do what they do, how their environment works. Hey, what are the things that make you nervous as you're going through your job, doing your job? What are those things? Because sometimes people are afraid to have those conversations with their employer. They're concerned about that. And so for us, if I go pick 5 people off the manufacturing floor, or I go pick 5 people off the construction site and just have a conversation with them, they're usually open to talking to us about that, because we tell them, hey, it's anonymous. We're not going to tell your employer who this is, but we just want to learn how we can help create a more safe environment for you. And those things that they say, the feedback that they give us, it makes all the difference. And so, that's what we really believe in as an agency. That's the way that we try to operate. And, we think it's a better way. It's a way that helps us lay our head on the pillow at night and feel good about what we do, because, our business is based off a very fundamental truth, okay? And that truth is utmost good faith. It's on the first page of the history books of insurance. And that's how we operate. That's how insurance companies should operate, on utmost good faith for the agent, for the employer, for the employee, for the employees of the insurance company. That's how we need to operate. But the problem is there's so many things that go on in the background. And those things are unknown to the client. These are things that we're having to do. We're having to negotiate. And there's things that the client, doesn't see. And so, kind of in conclusion of saying that, I feel like that's where Insurtech is different, right? It's a transparent way to do business. It's a way where everybody gets on the same page. Here's the information, here's the data. And I think it's just a better way, and I'm excited to get to talk to you about this.
That was deep on every level, but the one thing that I heard that I took away was intentionality, discipline, your choice to live your life with purpose, and your choice to take that purpose every day to your customers and to people that you meet randomly as you go about your life, and to have influence and impact on them, and to carry yourself in a way that not only you are proud of, but your son is proud of, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a lot to do that as a human being, day in and day out, and to remain committed and disciplined and focused on that outcome, right? Because it's always about an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And that outcome is the sustainability, the longevity of not only the relationship, but the impact from that relationship. And how did that impact transcend in many different ways and throughout many different other people's lives as well. And I think together we have a real opportunity to take that impact that you make and multiply it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this job is not that complicated, right? I mean, this is, like I said, it's utmost good faith. It's a promise to pay. That's what we have. Right? What to me is difficult is my wife's job. I mean, she's a stay-at-home mom. She manages a 6-year-old little boy. She manages a 4-year-old little girl, right? And she holds their emotions. She holds their lives. She's my sounding board. And, that's why it's so important to me, because this is really for them. I mean, that's why I'm doing this. And it's for all the people. It's for all the clients. I'll give you a great example. So my mother was in a car accident. The car accident was not her fault. She was with a big, the person that hit her was with a big insurance company, and they were giving her a hard time, right? The person that hit her had state minimum limits, and the insurance company called and said, "Look, we're not going to pay for your whole car." And so I called the adjuster that we work with her carrier, and every single step of the way, every single step from getting her a rental car to helping her understand the diminished value to the whole deal, right? He walked her through every single step. And so it doesn't matter if it's my mother's auto insurance policy. It doesn't matter if it's a client that I have that has 300 employees or 500 employees. I mean, our obligation is the same. It's ultimately to treat other people the way that we want to be treated. And so, look, am I perfect? No. I mean, I don't want it to sound like I'm perfect. Is our agency perfect? Absolutely not. But we are aware, right? We are aware of what I really think is the privilege to get to do this job, because it is one of the most honorable professions that I think anybody could be a part of. Because on somebody's very worst day, the day their building burns down, the day that somebody gets killed while they're working, the day that they have some kind of auto accident, right? That's where we have the opportunity to shine. We have the opportunity to step in and make them feel comfortable in situations that are very uncomfortable for people.
One of the things you and I were talking about that really hit home with me, because I experienced it myself, was not necessarily the fear, but sometimes this lack of comfort when you meet someone new, and it's not in a work setting, and you tell them, "I do insurance," right? And I think we've built this own stigma in our lives because we see this game of quoting that happens out there, and we see that this apples to apples comparisons, and we see all these things that we know that we shouldn't do as professional insurance agents and risk consultants and risk managers and trusted advisors of these businesses. But yet it's become the stigma of our industry, right? So how do we battle against that? Not only outwardly but internally, and how do we take, hey, what I do matters, what I do is noble, and the impact that I have has a transformative value across many, many, many lives. How do we do that every day?
I think there's definitely a path to professionalism in our industry, and I believe it's based on education. I mean, at least in the state that I'm in, you can take a 40-hour pre-licensing class, and you can get an insurance license, and then you can sell insurance to anybody you want to. You can sell insurance to a company that has 1 million employees on your very first day. And so the problem that we run into is that we place a huge value on sales. And I'm not saying that sales is important, because if you don't sell anything, then nothing happens, right? Nothing, the billing doesn't happen, the service doesn't happen, the claims don't happen. Nothing happens until insurance policy is put in place. But I think what we try to do that's different is provide education and help people come to their own conclusion. Because at the end of the day, the last thing that I want somebody to do is have buyer's remorse. The last thing that I want somebody to do is feel like I told them something that was not true. And so for me, I've got a degree from University of Georgia in risk management insurance, certified insurance counselor, certified work comp advisor, and for me, that's the most important thing. But the problem in our industry is that we place such a value on things like automation. We've placed such a value on things like sales, on making it, easy, not from a relationship standpoint, but like almost impersonal, right? We want to take the human optimized portion out of this, and we want to let the computers, make all these different decisions. But at the end of the day, this is all about people. I mean, everything that we do in our business, I try to relate back to people. Like, why do you need insurance on your building? Well, because if your building burns down, you lose income, you have 200 people that are depending on you, right? And so we have the opportunity to step in and replace that loss of income. And so the only way that you can do that or help somebody understand that is through education. And so, look, there's so many aggregation deals out there. It's very easy for people to get involved in our industry. But a lot of people get involved in our industry because they see that, hey, I can make some money in this and I can do it fairly easy. And so I just really believe that education is what gets us out of that quoting and hoping game. Education is what helps us be in the top 20%. Because 80% of the people will sell you as much insurance as you'll buy. And that's always the answer, is another insurance policy. But we don't talk about contractual risk transfer. We don't talk about knowingly retaining certain risk. We don't talk about avoidance in certain situations. And we put the insurance product first. We don't put any of the other stuff first. Right? We have a claims problem from a workers' comp standpoint. We're having 25 incidents a year. So our experience mod goes up. We're just going to get a quote, and we're going to quote that away. And that's the thing that is interesting about our industry, is like, to a certain degree, you can quote it away, right?
You almost always can.
You can quote it away up until a certain point. But then once it gets to a certain point, it becomes almost unaffordable for people. Bankrupt.
Insurance bankrupt.
It literally can.
Yeah.
Because in our state, right, our state fund is not a competitive fund like some other states, and so the rates are 3 times. So if you're in a higher hazard class code, right, you're a trucker, you're a tree company, you're a roofer. I mean, you're paying $100 100 at some point plus the mod, and so people literally can go bankrupt if they don't take control of this. And so, again, I just think that's education based. Not sales-based, not, you had a claim, we're going to quote it out, and we're going to get you a better deal next year. And the problem is that's the solution. So 36,000 insurance agencies in America, right? 80% are saying the solution's an insurance quote. And so I had a situation where I was talking to somebody, that's a client of mine. They had a $20-some-odd-thousand audit bill due. And so what I had to do is I had to go pull out the NCCI manual because they were wanting to change a class code to audit. Now, bear in mind, this was not my client. Now, the rules on this particular class said you cannot change a class code to audit, all right? And it said that if it's within the first 90 days of the policy, then you can go back to the inception date. But if you find out the last 90 days, you do it on the renewal term. So they were trying to, violate these rules or whatever that were set up. And the guy, it's just so appropriate that he asked me this question, because the guy in the situation, he said, "Can you not just bring me a quote? Can you make this go away and bring me a quote from somebody else?" And I said, "How is a quote going to help you? How is a quote going to make this $20,000 problem go away?" I said, "A quote is not going to make this $20,000 problem go away. The only thing that's going to make this $20,000 problem go away is education, right? Is understanding how this stuff works, whether we like the rules or not, whether we agree with the rules or not, right? That some of these insurance companies abide by. The rules are the rules. It's like the tax code. So it's our job as brokers to be educated enough to help people navigate those rules and the way that it works." And so ultimately, he decided he was going to give us an agent of record on his account, and we ended up cleaning up the audit. The audit went from $22,000 to zero. But again, the only solution that the other people had was, well, you need to pay your audit bill. You need to pay your audit bill, and if you don't like the insurance company, we'll bring you a quote from somebody else. I mean, that's incredible. That's the level of detail that is used in our industry when the care should be, I'm going to use every rule available to me, right, to get you out of that game. Because the insurance company, you know what they would have done? They would have taken that $20,000, they would have put it in their bank account, and they would have moved on. But they were not owed $20,000.
That's always what it comes down to, right? The boxes, the rules, the games are arbitrarily set for those that want the greater advantage, that have the greater leverage, that have the greater control and power to begin with, that push it down on people that aren't educated, that don't know how to stand up for themselves, that don't know how to argue, that don't know, honestly, right from wrong as it exists within the rules, right? And so when you were starting out as an agent, as a producer, when you were brand new in this, what would you tell yourself now to yourself then to change those first couple years of what you were doing?
That's an interesting question. I've always been very inquisitive. And I came from an insurance company background. And so my insurance company background, again, was all a quote. And it was almost like the agent was a necessary evil, right? That we have set up all these parameters, and the agent should be thankful that we've given them this opportunity. And that was the mentality that I experienced when I was on the company side, to the point to where the underwriting manager at the company I work for, we were in a meeting, we were talking about a particular account, and I just stepped up and said, "Well, is there a way that could we find a way to make this work?" And I'll never forget this for the rest of my life. It was like burned into my soul from like a career standpoint. And there was probably 20 people in the room, all these underwriters and people, and he looks at me and he said, you need to decide who you work for. Do you work for us or do you work for them?
Wow.
And what I wanted to say, I wanted to stand up in the room. I would have lost my job if I said it. But I wanted to stand up and say, I work for them. I work for them. I'm trying to help them. That's what I'm trying to do. And that was one of those things that made me realize I'm never going to be somebody that believes in that mentality, right? There's a lot of really awesome people that I get to deal with on the insurance company side. This is just one guy, right? I mean, I'm not going to characterize the whole industry based on one guy. But like when he said that to me, it was like one of those like out of body experiences, and I just thought there's got to be a better way to do business than this. And so I would say, luckily, I was on this track from a earlier standpoint than most people, because I did have that experience of thinking, man, this something is just not right. And also, one thing that I had was a lot of really great mentors. I mean, I had a 40-year veteran account manager when I first started, and her father actually was one of the owners of our agency. And he passed away, but he was one of the owners, and he was the H in HM, and she really knew the business, and she always, I'll never forget, Margaret would tell me, because I would get a proposal or something like that, and it wouldn't be what I asked for. She said, "Well, they don't have to give you what you asked for; they give you what they give you." And I'll never forget that. Right? I'll never forget that experience that she had. Robert Sutter was my first real mentor, and I hooked up with him very early on in the process, and he really helped me understand kind of the mind of the people that I would be talking to, right? What was important, and if you could just cut through all the other noise, all the other stuff that insurance people have been telling them for years, and really out of fear, right? Really out of fear of losing their job. And so that's one thing that I learned early on, is like there's somebody else always sitting in the room. And in order for me to get hired, I mean, somebody else has got to get fired. And so I've always been aware of that, and I've always been, fairly sensitive to that. And I've never wanted to operate in any other way to say, look, I'm going to give you all the information, all the education. I don't play these games of like, well, there's 4 holes in your insurance coverage, 4 gaps here, and so I'm going to tell you 2 of them today, and I'm going to tell you the other 2 if you hire me. Right? That's a game. That's a total game. And it's, gamification of our industry. I mean, we're this industry that's supposed to be built on utmost good faith, on paying claims, right? Policyholders have like 2 jobs, 3 jobs, right? They got to pay their client, they got to pay their bill. They have to notify the insurance carrier as soon as possible when they have a claim, and they have to mitigate further damage, right? That's the only 3 things that the insured is required to do in the policy. Tell the truth on the application. 4 things, right? But again, it just gets gamified to the point to where insureds don't even know who's telling the truth anymore.
Makes it so hard for you.
It
right?
does. It makes it so hard. And so I know that's a long answer to your question, but for me, I think it's education. I would have gotten more education even faster than I did.
Man, we've had such similar careers, it sounds like, such similar experiences in this journey, and similar frustrations, really, but also a common desire to break it, common desire to break these games, these fundamental flaws, these things that don't actually help people. And man, I'm happy you're here.
Well, I'm glad to be here, and I think part of the reason that I've operated the way that I've operated is I'm no good at the game. I mean, I'm no good at the gamesmanship. I'm no good at telling people what they want to hear. I'm just not good at it, and it's not worth it to me either, right? It's not worth it to me. I don't want people to have buyer's remorse, and so some things are unavoidable, right? There's a friend of mine. He's got this slide deck. I wish I could have a copy of it, but it's called how an insurance policy came to be, right? My partner Waylon, he's got a really funny saying. He used to work for a captive carrier, and he said, I'm pretty sure they thought that the mailman wrote all the business, because back then it was paper apps, and so that the mailman would bring all these paper apps in, and he always jokes about that. He always jokes about that, like, hey, the mailman writes all the business. But I just think that with that slide deck, he talks about, here's how an insurance policy comes to be. Somebody calls somebody on the phone, and they don't just call them one time, right? They don't just call them 2 times, they call them 3 times, they call them 12 times on average, all right? They work on it for 3 years to build the relationship, They end up getting a relationship. They get a proposal from an insurance company, right? They go and they win the client. And then instead of drafting their account for they sign up on an EFT for 12 payments. Instead of drafting 8% of the money, they draft 100% of the money because we set it up wrong in the billing account, and somebody gets $50,000 drafted out of their account. And then you're the agent and you're going, I got to go fix this problem, right? And then you start off on a bad foot with somebody. And so I just look at it like that's how this happens, is through people, through relationships, and stuff is going to happen. But I just think, and then it's just like, well, we're sorry. We're sorry, we'll do better. We'll do better. And so that's how it comes to be. So I just think that's why that partnership is so important. And all those little things that happen, along the way.
That's what it's all about, right? It's all about the consistency and discipline to do those little things right, day in, day out, all the time, to act in utmost good faith, to take care of people, to do the right thing, to honor contracts that we wrote and distributed as insurance policies. Mm-hmm. Doesn't it blow your mind how many times insurance companies, after a claim is filed, the very first thing they do, what are the exclusions and the ways that we can get out of paying this claim? Mm-hmm. But I thought that this contract, I thought that this policy was a contract of trust, a contract of promise, a future promise to pay when the worst day of your life shows up.
Well, and then a third-party adjuster shows up because they want to save money. That's one of the big questions I ask carriers is who's going to adjust the claim? Is it your people? Is it somebody else? Who's going to do the audits? Is it your people? Is it somebody else? And I know everybody's under tremendous pressure, right? They're under tremendous pressure to perform, to make money, all these different things. But I just really think that relational aspect is so important. And I mean, look, there's all kind of stuff, there's one company that writes all the boiler machinery, like, in America, so lightning strikes somebody's building. It's not like, hey, we want to pay your building. We got to check with the equipment breakdown carrier first to make sure it's not, a power surge before we'll pay the lightning claim. Well, there was a storm there. We all know there was a storm. This is a lightning claim. Well, we got to see if it can be equipment breakdown because somebody else is on it, right? It's not really these insurance companies that's on the boiler machinery. So to your point, even in a situation, something is clearly covered as part of the policy, we got to kind of go through all these channels before we pay what we know is owed. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I can't get into it now, but I have a really great solution for that I'm really excited to share in a couple years once it's regulatorily approved, because it's a problem, and the biggest problem in our industry right now is how slow it is to react to things, and how hard it is to make big changes on a macro level. And there's all these things that are inherently wrong, that we as humans didn't think were wrong 100 years ago. We just considered it to be how things had to be because of the confines that we were surrounded by, right? We didn't have data, we didn't have technology, we didn't have trust of people that we hadn't met before that were on the other side of the country. All of those things have been solved for now, but insurance hasn't really acted like they have been. Right. Insurance still thinks, let's do things the same way we've always done things, and let's make it difficult for people, and let's make it difficult to get actually good insurance at a good premium that is actually going to take care of you when your worst day of your life shows up.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the premise of insurance is beautiful, right? I mean, it's a beautiful premise. You share the risk with other people. The insurance companies kind of managing the process. But at the end of the day, if me and you are insured with the same company, I'm paying your claim, you're paying my claim. I mean, that's cool,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
That's a
It's people helping people.
it's people helping people,
Yeah.
and I just think that as the years go by, it's no longer writing a deal in it's no longer writing a deal and shipping something to the new world and drawing a line and writing your name under it and saying I'll take so much of the risk for so much money. It's a lot more complicated than that now, but that's still ultimately kind of what we're doing, right? But it's just complicated. It's just a lot more complicated, probably more complicated than it should be at this point. And so, we just want to be a solution to that. We want to be good partner for everybody that we work with, every carrier, every client, every employee, our people. And so I think when we optimize it to be good for humans, for human beings, that's when the real win happens. And I know, we're obviously talking about workers' comp, and I think it's just a lot easier from just a human perspective to use I'll use life insurance. I'll use my own dad as an example. I mean, when my dad passed away, he had a life insurance policy, and everybody's scrambling. Everybody's got all kind of things they're worried about. But at the end of the day, the world continues to turn. The power bills still do, all that stuff. And my mom, who hadn't paid a power bill in 30 some odd years of marriage, right, had no idea what to do, and so didn't know, didn't know. It just never. My dad always taking care of that kind of stuff, and so obviously me being in the insurance business, I end up, handling, the life insurance claim and all that kind of stuff. And the insurance carrier, first thing they said, they were like, "We're so sorry about your dad. He's had this policy with us for a long time. We want to take care of your family. And we sent them a voided check, and they put the money in the account in 24 hours. Now, for me as an agent, I mean, what a story, right? I mean, when I'm talking to a business owner about this stuff, I can tell my own story about how this impacted our family, and how life insurance was a tool for our family. And, how my dad had that forethought to do that. And, I just think that how this insurance company reacted, I mean, that's what they're supposed to do, right? And they did it really quick, and they were it almost felt like they were honored to do it, and they fulfilled their obligation, right? He paid his premium for all those years, and then when the time came for them to do the right thing, they did the right thing. And to me, that's just a beautiful picture of how this stuff should work. And so, yeah, that's what I'm all about, man. I'm all about trying to do the right thing, even if it hurts.
Dude, we have so many more topics to cover, so we have to continue this. There's got to be episode 2, 3, and 4, and 5 with Josh, man, because this is great. So we want to, again, really, really appreciate you coming out, spending some time with us, getting to know you, and getting to know what you're about.
Yeah.
Because you're the real deal, man. We're proud to partner with you.
Well, I want to say one more thing, because I think this is important for anybody that would hear this, and I hope this makes the final cut, okay? If nothing else I said makes the final cut, I hope this makes the final cut. So I'm even gonna pause, guys. I'm gonna pause, okay? Because I want to make sure it's a beautiful transition when I say this. I have the two best business partners that anybody on the planet could ask for. Waylon Smith and Andrew Deering are two of the closest people to me in my entire life. I trust them implicitly. I've never, not one time, questioned their integrity or the way that they operate. they're just the best guys in the world to me. And I love them both. I'm so thankful for both of them. You know, I'm thankful for Waylon's wisdom in my life. I'm thankful for Andrew's wisdom, for his sales acumen, for his commitment to his family. I'm thankful that I have people in my life that I can trust. I'm thankful for my wife and the way that she supported me, because I would not be sitting at this table at this moment if it was not for my wife. She is like the unsung hero of our family. She doesn't come on the podcast. She doesn't, get in the light, very often, if ever. But she is fulfilling a duty that, to me, is the most sacred duty that she could ever fulfill. Because it's not always about what you do. It could be about who you raise. And so, for me, I believe that it's your direction, it's not your intention, that determines your destination. That's what it is. I learned that a long time ago from Andy Stanley, and he's one of my favorite people. And it's so true. It's true in business. It's true in life. You could get on Interstate 75 in Georgia, and you could drive north, but your destination is Miami, Florida. Well, guess what? If you drive north on I-75, you're never going to get to Miami. Never going to get there. So it's not about your intention of where you want to go. It's all about what you do. And I want to end this by saying something that I've said on every time I've ever had the opportunity to speak, whether it's in front of people, whether it's on a podcast, it doesn't matter. I say this every single time. I've even told you this since I've been here. There are a lot of things that you can delegate in this life. You can delegate certain things related to business. You can delegate who cuts your grass. You can delegate who cleans your house. There's a lot of different things that you can delegate. But there are two things that only you can do. And I really believe this. There's nobody else that can be for my wife what I can be. Nobody can do that but me, right? That's an obligation, a commitment that I made that I have to fulfill, that only I can fulfill. Nobody else can do that but me. I can't delegate that. I can't delegate that relationship. I can't give that to anybody else. It's my responsibility. And the second thing is I cannot delegate my relationship with my children. They get one father, and he's sitting right here in this room. I can't delegate that. I can't give that up to somebody else. It's too important. It's too important to delegate. There's a lot of stuff in business that's important, but it's not too important to delegate. But those two things are too important in your life, in my life, in anybody's life, to delegate. And so everybody's going to have the opportunity. And again, this is another thing from Andy, but we have opportunity to choose to cheat, right? And that sounds kind of like a counterintuitive thing. What do you mean choose to cheat? What I'm saying is that if we're going to cheat on something, right, we got to cheat on something every now and then when it comes to business and when it comes to family. My choice is to choose to cheat on the business every now and then for my family. Because ultimately, if I didn't have them, none of this would even matter, right? It wouldn't be important. So I think for anybody that's in business, anybody that's in business leadership, there's a cost to everything that you do. There's a cost to everything you say. There's a cost to every interaction you have. Like I mentioned earlier about my kids at the beach and telling me, Daddy, that was the best thing we've ever done. And so I'm a business guy. I love this kind of stuff. But I hope for whoever is listening to this that if they have the opportunity to cheat, that they would cheat on their business and that they would prioritize their time with their wife, their husband, their family, because nobody can do that but you.
It's a hell of a way to end it, man.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. This has been an honor. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the next time.
Yeah, man. Thank you.
Thank you.